All right. We're live, Scott.
Great.
Good to be here. I'm sitting in your house. I'm a guest. You're a guest.
You bet. Good to have you here. Not your first time here.
Not my first time. Lots of great memories had in this house and on your farm. And
hopefully many more.
Yeah, no doubt. You've been a mentor to me throughout my life. For those of you who don't know, Scott got me interested in ag business and introduced me to all those down at Iowa State, Ron Dieter, Kevin Kimley, that whole group of people. Just too many to name, really, and wish I had more time with them. But maybe I can solve some of that with doing some of this kind of fun project stuff.
You bet.
Yeah.
Good people. Great people.
Was there a specific moment in time for you that you knew you wanted to get in agriculture? We've been in it with Farm Country Trader magazine and everything since 1989. What sparked your passion for agriculture?
Well, I grew up here on this one of the family farms. I am the fifth generation Lee tilling some of this land, which is a huge blessing. So yeah, I enjoyed the farm growing up. Just the livestock, the crops. The 80s was a really tough time for production ag. I decided to go to Iowa State and explore probably more of a ag business route. Started in agronomy, actually, switched to ag business, which I loved. Again, as you said, shout out to some great professors and people at Iowa State. Ag law was just really emerging as a really interesting field that caught my eye. I went to Drake Law School, studied with Neil Hamilton, another great guy, and didn't really think I would probably ever be this fifth generation farmer here in Western Lyon County. The little side business my family had was making roasted soybeans. Just a fun little backstory on that. My dad was in the Vietnam War, saw a lot of soy foods being eaten in Southeast Asia, and thinking we have all this soy here in the upper Midwest, and we should try some of this. So it was kind of a fun little project of my dad's. But 92, a big study about soy protein and some of the health benefits of soy protein was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. We were one of the few soy foods companies in the U.S. at the time. The others were tofu and soy milk. We'd been growing food grade soybeans for quite some time. Most were shipped to San Francisco or Houston and made into tofu or soy milk. Not very American types of soy foods. Americans like snack foods and crunchy stuff, salty stuff. So we were poised to, our little project business took off at that point, and I was toward the end of law school, knew I did not want to practice, wanted to be more on the transactional side, all business stuff. So I was about to marry a young lady named Jennifer Dukes. She was in Omaha.
Very familiar with Jennifer Lee.
She was in Omaha already, also an Iowa State grad, but she was in Omaha at the Omaha World Herald. So I moved to Omaha, did some work with an insurance company also with more my legal background, but jumped into the family snack food business and
Super Soy Nuts. I love the spicy ones. They were my favorite.
Jalapeno and cheddar. Oh, yes. So again, a fun little sideline business. We've gotten into soy candles also. That was about 99 or 2000. Another value-added ag product I think was actually developed in Indiana with a research grant of the Soybean Association in Indiana, turning that soybean oil into a wax, a burnable wax. Burns clean, unlike paraffin, because paraffin's
I've actually
petroleum.
Noticed that in my filters when I changed them.
Sure.
We were using a wood wick, and man,
a lot of soy.
It was right around when those Ohio things were going on, East Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, great.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but I'm pretty sure it was the
Well, yeah,
candles.
and very few people would realize it until you take a cloth up toward the top of near your ceilings, or your wine glasses up in the top of your cupboard, and wipe a tissue on them, and you realize a lot of soot from candles.
Yeah.
A couple other little in that gift business, a couple other little products in that. But fast forward a little, Jennifer and I decided when we wanted to start having daughters to move back to Inwood, and I was planning to just stay involved with the seed company, with the soy nuts and the candles, help with the farm, which I still enjoyed, but the old Vietnam days of my dad caught up with him. We weren't home very long, and he had another round of cancer, much more serious, from Agent Orange exposure in Vietnam, and died pretty shortly afterwards. So I was taking over the farm also.
I still remember that, actually.
Yeah.
I was pretty young, but
Yes.
yeah.
16 years tomorrow. So,
Wow.
yeah. So that is my roundabout story and my changing. I consider myself an entrepreneur, but it's changing products and changing things I promote and sell. And I do love the farm. I love the history of it. Many new challenges in production ag these days. Just things that our ancestors did, we thought might always work, don't necessarily always work. And we're learning new techniques and using new technology and new chemistry. So it's always changing, but I do enjoy the farm. I feel like a good calling, a good purpose, and glad I've been able to raise my daughters here in Inwood, in a small town. And we'll see where they end up. I don't expect them to come back, but never say never, right?
You never know. For those of you who don't know, both the daughters are either going to be across the ocean or are across the ocean. So it's a lot to consider as a dad, I'm sure.
We'll see where they end up, but it's good that they appreciate their roots, but I'm glad they have wings too and are out spreading them. So
yeah, no doubt. Super proud of both of them. They're both very inspiring and talented and gifted, and man, yeah, they're going to do great things and already are, no doubt.
Yes, so we may need to visit them. They were just home for Christmas, which was awesome. Nice long break.
Yeah, no, we got to see Anna and Lydia, and
it was
boys
nice.
got to see them. That was
nice
great.
Break.
No doubt. All right. We'll move back in, sticking with some of the framework that I had when I was talking with Josh recently, Josh Krenz up at Winland Flats, with all these different products that you've come up with, whether it's the candles or the soy nuts or those kinds of things. When you're doing that, you're in this moment where you're thinking people are going to buy it. I hope they buy it, but I need to produce it. Take me back to that moment.
Sure. It's hard. And again, my dad was really the brainchild of the soy nuts, and figured out we started with having a sunflower seed manufacturer with roasters up in North Dakota. So we started as a fun little, I think it was maybe some holiday gifts for some of his customers that raised the edible beans. Just a fun little Christmas gift, and they were popular. They were good. Decided to try it on the farm, and but yeah, as then a fun little business became a product that the American public was looking for as they were reading and trying to get soy protein into their diets more. So yeah, like you said, you have a product and you hope people want it. How do you figure it out? At that point, the world was different back in the late 80s, the early 90s. So it was getting in front of customers was a challenge. The grocery stores, it was a product that needed to be sampled. People weren't looking for it on supermarket shelves or convenience store shelves. So we did a lot of direct marketing, everything from farmers markets to art festivals, craft shows, health fairs.
Did you ever
all
go to
type.
the Sioux Falls Farm Show?
Yes,
Yeah.
many times.
Yep. So
Yes,
we're obviously getting ready to go to that pretty soon
yes.
here. That's this week.
And
So
so few business people really take their product directly to a consumer. You learn a lot.
yeah.
Some of the feedback isn't always kind. I mean,
I wish some of these tech guys, these really big
Yeah.
tech guys that I'm not going to say, would
Yeah.
just try and start to create an account or try to
yeah,
gather more than one account and connect to those two.
yeah.
I don't understand how it's that hard.
No,
But it is
absolutely.
ridiculous.
And you're right. If they had to walk through it themselves, there would be changes forthcoming.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they'll probably do it. Just wait. You just wait.
But yeah, getting samples in front of a customer, and again that feedback, some of it is kind, some of it's just really, really frank and blunt, but that's good too. You learn a lot about your product. And so also the birth of the internet, and we launched a commerce site in late 98, which was very early. And
yes, the .com bubble.
yes, so I remember I read few old books like Kim Commando, one of the early AOL pioneers, and it was very simple, but it was okay if we're at the Minnesota State Fair in Minneapolis, in St. Paul, and sell soy nuts, and where can customers get to you? Yeah, we did the 800 number and the mail order for a few years before the internet too, but it opened up some opportunities for small companies with niche products and gave us a way, especially for soy nuts, for a product that's a perishable or replenishable. Same with candles. They're going to use it up. They're going to want more. So yeah, so that was just getting the product in front of customers was definitely a challenge. But then as soy foods gained prominence, we did do some grocery store marketing. We did some private labeling for some larger customers that already had brands established. Got to the point where people were looking for soy foods on grocery store shelves. And yeah, that's dealing with food brokers and all that. That's a whole different ball game. And we've never been a large company. We were never a large company, so we had production limits too. So tried to go with where we were capturing the most of the dollar to the consumer. So direct retail was awesome, but involves travel and yeah. But
yeah, turns out it's a lot. Yeah,
it does.
As much as you put in it.
Yeah, but it's great feedback from customers, and yeah, when you can capture retail dollars, it's
always better.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that with the brewery too. That's why you're seeing more breweries open up, more breweries down in Des Moines area. Now there's one on the east side and the west side, and so yeah, if you can
and your
capture
story
that.
matters. People want to support. I have a great friend on the west side of Chicago that has started a distillery, and they're 6-7 years into it now, but great business. And they'll, a lot of agritourism out. People from Chicago can come out to the farm and have a drink and see some of the fields right there.
Stuff they never see.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's and they're selling retail direct to consumers. They have their tasting room, and yeah, it's working out well for them.
Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah.
This is the fun part of the recording where I give you a special treat.
Oh, great.
That was provided by the previous guest.
Oh, wow.
For those of you listening, I am opening up a bag. And inside this bag is Windland Flats beef sticks.
Oh, nice.
Thanks for letting me borrow your truck.
Yes.
In time of peril.
Oh, I can't wait.
They're delicious. He gave me 2 packs. I ate 1.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you to Windland. Wow.
Yeah. Josh
I look forward to that.
He's a great guy. He's the one that brought the bull over to the blind butcher. And yeah, it's been great to get to know him and hear about what he sees in the future. And yeah, it's just nice to catch up to.
Very cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. I have a gift for you to pass along to your next guest.
Oh, you've already picked it out.
I have,
So
yes.
I figured you would. If it's not an entire 25-pound ham.
I wish.
No, I think if I eat any more ham, I'm going to start making noises here. I'm not going to make any pig noises. This isn't the Iowa State Fair, but you can about imagine.
Yes. Yes. 'Tis the holiday season,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's delicious. And then I just put it in little bags like this one that I had that in, and take it out of the freezer.
Yeah.
Had about 8 pounds extra. It was
Well,
great.
you had a, 21 pounder? Yeah.
21 point something. Bone in, baby. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah. The next project is I'm going to make a potato and ham soup.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the bone and.
Yes.
Yeah. That's going to be good, I think.
Yes. Oh, yes.
My father-in-law is a little disappointed that I'm not making ham and bean, but I don't know. I think
that
the
was
wife
one of my
will
dad's
appreciate
favorites. Must be a generational thing.
it. What are you calling him, old?
I like it too.
Hopefully he won't listen. We can always cut it out, right?
That's right. That's right.
All right. So we're going through these questions. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in your business career or professional career with your various brands and projects and yada, yada, yada?
Let me fast forward on the soy nut story. This is a big thing I love to discuss, is regulatory constraints on small businesses. We no longer make the soy nuts. There was a food law change under President Obama that put some more constraints on smaller food processors that applied to larger manufacturers at the time. So that was also shortly after my dad died. I was needing to make some decisions on what I could continue and could not continue. But yeah, that's regulatory. The regulatory environment has always been a challenge. It's a challenge in all of agriculture today, in livestock and the crops too. Way back early, like I said, the mail order and learning the online commerce, those were some steep learning curves, but it changed the nature of business for a lot of small businesses, and still is today. It's people are able to showcase a product and let people all over the world see it. So, but shipping is becoming a very difficult environment for small businesses like ours.
It's expensive.
It's horrible. It's ridiculous.
Postage has gone up.
I feel like small companies like ours are subsidizing Amazon's free shipping. And that's, I know, is the case to some extent.
The free 2-day shipping?
Yes.
That's actually 1 week.
Yes.
And what?
Yes.
We went from...
Yeah. I'm just as guilty. There's times where rather than run all over the community looking for this, I'll jump on Amazon and...
it's waiting for you at home.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with Amazon. It is convenient, but we all need to remember to support our local businesses too.
Yeah.
It has its time and its place, but it's changed.
Yeah,
Changed
I know.
Main Street.
And you have to control which paths you take every day. You have to, if there's a place you want to support, you really got to make sure that it's on your path.
Right.
And
if you want it to be there in a year and 2 years.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I know. I've been thinking about that too. It's just our local town is, I'm not going to say booming, but there's businesses and our main street's starting to look a little bit better.
It is. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All it takes is a few people taking a chance and fixing up an older building and But that shipping is, I think, going to be a very restrictive, there's at least, UPS at least has a little more competition in FedEx and other little contractors that'll take larger small packages, and the Postal Service has stepped up their game to some extent, but it's still really expensive compared to when we had a booming mail order business through all of the 90s and the early 2000s. It's just, it's hard to get product from point A to point B. We end up requiring a little larger minimum order, and cuts into our profit margins, but we try to get larger orders out of, we had some customers who would like to order every month, and it's training them to order quarterly and stock up, especially if it's products that don't have a shelf life. You don't have to worry about,
you don't think about stuff like that,
perishability, so it's been trying to retrain some customers, but yeah, shipping is for online businesses like ours, it's very much a challenge.
Yeah, you and everybody else. Yep, preaching to the choir.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
I don't know. I think the more people I've been talking to, the more promise, or kind of, I don't know, people are seeing a brighter future. It seems most places that I'm going. Just fun little fact. I was listening to Kevin Kimley's podcast, or a YouTube channel, whatever. And he was talking about the intent of ag biz kids right now. And so he has one of the professors ask, or maybe he even asks too, how many of you plan on starting a farm or a business once you get out of this class? And it used to be, I would think it was probably like under 50%. But the last 3 years, it's been like 78, 75,
Really?
75.
That's awesome.
So there's a lot of, as he said, intentionality for young entrepreneurs. But I wonder how much of it is just coming out of people wanting to be more self-sufficient and sustainable, and trying to get some goats and maybe trying out some chicken. Because, I mean, that is farming to some extent, but it's not commercial farming.
Right.
So,
right. But if it's profitable and maybe it's a side hustle, that's awesome. That's, that's really good to hear, because what we think of as traditional crop operation, for instance, it's too capital restrictive for somebody to jump in very easily. And, but gardening or a small scale livestock operation, something very, very specialized. I do go back to people support a story. People, if you tell them your story and how you brought this about, people love that and people support that, and they may be willing to pay shipping or even pay a little higher prices than picking it up at their local grocery stores or their local Target, Walmart. So I think we need to tell our stories, and people eat that up, I think, literally.
I agree. 100%. Very hard question for a farmer, but you didn't tell me not to cover it. How did you fund your startup initially? And did you face any difficulties in securing financing?
We were very fortunate with some local banks, and I know that isn't everybody's story. They've had to be more in a cautionary role, but we've had very good luck with local banks. My dad had some land too that we were able to use as collateral, so that was helpful. We were very conservative in each phase of expansion. Old farm buildings were often, and still to this day,
I was just going to say, you're
yeah.
basically leasing them out.
Yes.
So
old farm buildings were transformed, and that helped a lot. Along with that, dealing with local financing sources, local contractors were great. I'm a big believer in small communities of, I won't throw anybody under the bus here, but I mean, I have a handful of service and contractor people that I know I could call on a Sunday afternoon, and they would do all they can if I have an emergency. And that's very valuable. I know that doesn't exist everywhere. So I try to support those local contractors if at all possible. We have always had quite local employees, and that has been probably the largest blessing of running a successful business back in the days when the soy nuts were very busy, or the candles or our gift line were busier. I have Nick now. Nick Meester does, he's a huge blessing to me, a very gifted mechanic, and I'm not. He likes working with livestock. I've tried to have brought him in as a partner, tried to, see what his needs are and what he'd like to do. It's been a huge blessing to me, especially, as we said, with my daughters, who may very well both be overseas.
It is what it is.
So,
and
yeah.
they're right where they're supposed to be.
Right, exactly.
And
But I want to be able to visit them and still, know that somebody's here. If I want to be gone for a week, that my mom's still on the farm. That somebody can clear her driveway out, or
Yep.
So yeah,
No doubt.
I'm
you take great care of Joyce.
Yes, try to, but she deserves it.
She's a saint.
She is.
Yes, she deserves
She
it.
is, and she wants to stay on the farm, which is awesome. And so we try to do all we can to, move her snow and mow her lawn and keep it where she is.
Well, you rent so much space out there now. You have to keep it clean anyway.
There's lots of commotion.
Yeah.
Yes, she has a lot.
It's got a booming little industrial area north side of town.
Yeah, that's been fun as we had a part of a building that we actually used to have the soy nut roasters in, and have renovated that. It was quite a cleaning project, but brought in a startup new company. They'd be fun for you to talk with someday.
Yeah. I'm glad to talk to anybody.
Brody and his guys, they're really, really busy, and I always figured my dad would be happy about that, to see another startup business on the farm. And
yeah. See, yeah, you do all these things and you don't probably even think about it, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Just watching outside looking in, and maybe you do realize it, but you're really supporting entrepreneurs, even with just your leasing out space.
For sure. Sure. No, everybody needs a little, whether it's a local bank or a neighbor or something, everybody needs a little, leg up to get started, if it's family or whoever. I think we all need to do that for each other, if at all possible.
Yeah. And you just hate to see things sitting there not used.
Right.
I mean, that's always my biggest issue, is how much space do we really need? And
right.
Sometimes it's really hard to tell, but
yes.
You try and figure it out.
My dad and my grandpa were both collectors, just probably my grandpa, especially living in the Depression era, and, just a piece of junk steel or lumber, and you keep things. You don't just burn them or toss them.
No.
So
you turn it into something for the animals.
That's right. Or it's
pets,
there when you need to patch something. And yes, but when you're the fifth generation on the same farm place, there's a lot of junk laying around.
Yeah.
So
it's worked its way into the landscaping now.
It does. I've had to do some cleaning here and there, but yes,
we've all got a little bit of cleanup.
You have with your dad's stuff now that you've taken, and it's
repurposing. A lot of this stuff is either donated or blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
So,
and that's great. Rather than stash it and sit around, if it can be used, amen to that.
Right. That's the mission.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to, we're about half hour in here. We're on question 5, which is, what role has technology played in the changes of our industry?
And
that is the big question. I know it's like a very large world.
It is
very large agriculture.
I try to read a lot. I'm a slow implementer, probably for my farming operation for the row crop. What used to be a pretty good size operation is now a pretty small operation. And so it's hard to implement everything I'd like to, but there's just, it is a constantly evolving, changing industry in, not just what you'd consider front level technology, but also keeping up with chemistry, with tillage options.
Yeah.
Things like that. I
really want to go talk to Casey Jones, but I haven't convinced him yet. So maybe if he listens, he'll feel like
you're pretty easy.
He'll have to. I don't know.
I'll give you a plug there.
Maybe you can call him up instead of me. He used to listen to me on my car ride home. I used to call him all the time. No, he's got
Well,
too many
just-
kids.
Just call him and hit record.
Yeah, right.
Don't tell him
Yeah.
he's
I'll
your
have-
next guest.
That's only allowed in South Dakota, Scott. He'll have to come over there.
But there's things too, just like I mentioned, I'm not a great mechanic. You know, I'm very hands-on. I can try, but you know, I use YouTube videos a lot just for
You and me both.
how can I
today.
fix this? How do I take this apart, or I took this apart? How do I put it back together?
The most successful people I know are using YouTube and
Yeah.
looking up how to do this, how to do that. I
Yes.
don't want to give anybody away, but
Yeah,
we're all
absolutely.
constantly learning. And if you just embrace it, I think you're going to
Absolutely.
get more back than.
And
Yeah.
reading, you know, there's just a wealth of listening or text, you know, to consume too. We haven't talked about livestock much. We had a cattle operation, a cow-calf operation when I was growing up. We're out of that completely, just in hogs. But that's Northwest Iowa is a tough place to raise hogs because of all the just airborne disease pressure. And so it's constantly, you know, I've got a great vet, again, a good local contractor, people that you constantly have to be watching and listening and seeing what's happening out there just for biosecurity issues and what's working to keep your site safe and clear and, you know, not have the latest disease come walking in on delivery truck drivers' boots and things like that too. That's a very heavily regulated industry. Again, it's a food industry. Not that crops aren't, but livestock seems to be one notch closer. And we have to listen to what our consumers want and are looking for, both domestic U.S. consumers and export. It's, you know, that's, again, I read a lot, and you try to keep up, and you try to have a product that people want to buy, but it's constantly trying new things, and does this work? Does this not work? And
Yeah, I know it's a lot to sift through. That's why I asked the question, is because we're all sifting through it. There's about 8 different chat GPT type things. And
Yep.
most people haven't even learned all the acronyms and understand what AGI versus
Yep.
AI is. And are we talking about cattle? Or are we talking about, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
a confusing world for everybody right now.
It is.
And I don't blame people. But,
Rapidly coming around.
Yeah.
Yes.
but I've even been using some of these tools in our day to day, and we could be using it better, but the things that you can do with voice transcription assistance and stuff like that is just crazy for helping you set up action plans and
Mhm.
who said what, just remembering who said what and who was going to do what. And
Sure.
it just
Sure.
clearly paints out who is in what role and who needs. It's crazy. And it's going to make everybody more efficient. I think there's going to be a lot more hourly people because of the people can't even keep up with the efficiency. I mean, if you're
Mhm.
a lawyer right now and you type up Chat GPT, something about I need a contract or an NDA and my company's name is this, boom, it spits it out.
Absolutely.
And I'm
Yeah,
not saying
it's
that
amazing.
it's as good, but it's probably
But
going to
it may be a good base
enough
to work from. Yes.
and especially in 4 years or something, you're going to be able to use these like Chat GPT or Grok, like things like that. You're going to be able to use those to generate video soon. That's just going to change everything too.
Mm-hmm. I am a big proponent of working smarter, you know, of efficiency, but there are many things I do on a day-to-day that I'm not sure how AI is going to streamline those.
Right.
But I'm constantly looking.
Yeah. And there's one of the cool things that I've seen a few companies doing is they have these little things you can pin on yourself, and then it's just recording.
Huh.
And it's just trying to get a picture of what you're
it is.
doing. And
Okay.
hey, you just talked to so-and-so. You should probably set up a meeting.
Huh.
Now, imagine if it sent that email,
Yeah.
set up that meeting for you.
Hmm.
That'd be pretty handy.
It would be.
But
a lot of the busy work, just, calendar maintenance, just scheduling
scheduling
to-do
should
list,
become a breeze,
reminders.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think there's going to be a lot of benefits potentially, but it's also really dangerous, right? So
Sure.
you got to be careful who's listening to your conversations at
Right.
all times, and you got to
Right.
make sure that you trust them.
Yes, and that you trust what you're putting on autopilot. That you trust that it's done how you want it.
Yeah, I know. You got to make sure that you're the guy that presses the button at the
Yes.
end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Dad started as a publisher, and as a kid, I didn't really understand what that meant. But really, every time that you post, X, tweet, yada, yada, whatever you want to call it, you're publishing
Yes.
something.
Oh, yes.
And so we're all really publishers.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's just when I was talking to Josh, he's, but I'm a writer. I'm not going to give that over to AI. And I'm like, I totally get it. And I don't think comedians, that would be a tough nut to crack too. I haven't seen anything be able to spit out a joke that's anything better
No.
than a dad joke.
No.
There's no setup and punchline that I've seen that really makes me
Right.
giggle. So we're still necessary for now. And also, we're two guys sitting in a room having a conversation. How much more human does it get?
Right.
So
Right. This will never be replaced.
hopefully this never gets
No.
replaced,
No.
or we're in trouble.
Right. Right. We are. Then it's gone too far.
It's gone too far. Skynet. All right, so we're going to go after number 7. We've got plenty of time here.
Okay.
So we may end up taking a little bathroom break after number 7 on your screen. And then we'll wrap up with some more questions and
Sounds
give you a
good.
chance to
Sounds
get
good.
moving on. I know you
I
got a
can
busy
just
schedule.
Get on my monologue and fill any time that you'd like.
Yeah. I know. I felt like I wasn't very qualified when I showed up. I didn't realize Josh he had a radio station when he was in college. And I'm like, if there was any hope that I could get away with this or sneak something past him.
Well, he's done a lot of hauling equipment around then, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, I think he probably didn't mess. Like when you're in a radio station, it's just sitting there all
so
the
he
time.
was always stationary. Okay.
So he was probably more stationary.
Okay.
But yeah, he had his whole intro set up, ready to go. And yeah,
Oh,
that
shoot.
was good. He's a good guy. All right. So before we break, just want to get one of your most memorable entrepreneurial business community type moments.
I gave a little thought to this one, and there have been many. But as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow is 16 years since my dad passed away. And
he gave up a lot for our country.
yes, absolutely. So I am, it was cancer. So it was 2 types of cancer together. And so we had a little warning, but it went relatively quickly. But one of his last things he told me was, I had much more to teach you. Which is cool, but
Yeah.
also kind of
It's a little
gulp,
yeah.
But
I
well,
knew you'd have a good one.
and he was a teacher too. He was an interesting combination of personalities because he's an old Army Ranger captain, and so there were times when my daughters used to say, if I'd raise my voice just any tiny little bit, they'd say, "Why are you yelling at us?" And I would say,
you haven't seen
"You'll
nothing.
know when I'm yelling at you," because I grew up under Paul Lee.
Yeah.
But he also had a teacher's heart, and that was worked into a lot of what he did teach me. And Jennifer loves this story. This is the first part of the story. But one time, when the height of the soy nut days, he and Mom were taking off for an event that we had, a display or a sales event at. We were combining beans, and I was a great helper on the farm. I had never had to run everything myself though, but I was a great helper.
Yeah.
And just really didn't know much about the combine. I think it was an old 9400, John Deere 9400 at that
Nice.
point. But one of the tank augers, we assumed that's what it was, and it did end up being one of the augers in the bottom of the tank. was broke. A bearing or something broke, the gearbox. It was probably a Thursday afternoon, and soybean harvest is very timely. You often can't start till 11 in the morning, noon, when the humidity goes out, and you can't combine very long, especially with those old Walker combines. And we pulled it back up to the yard. The tank is full of beans, and he jumps in his pickup, or as he's walking away, he says, "Well, see if you can figure out, I'll be back Monday." And I was not a real happy camper, but
Oh, man.
that part of that was his teaching nature. I did figure it out, and probably involves some cursing and kicking, but
Yeah.
I did figure it out. Learned a lot more about just wrenching into a combine that for the next couple of days. But when my dad passed away, there were a lot of things I didn't have anybody to ask, and there weren't an awful lot of YouTube videos to go search
Yeah,
at that.
you're kind of an outlaw.
I was kind of, so I asked a lot of neighbors and friends. I'm sure some of my questions didn't sound very intelligent, but
sounds like me talking about animals. But I know I'm not the worst.
Yeah, well, how else do you learn? And
Right.
I just had to swallow some pride and get out and ask. And we have some awesome neighbors, many multi-generation neighbors too.
Many.
And when you ask people for help, even if you're not in a position that your dad just passed away, I mean, just asking people for help is hard to do, but many huge blessings came from that. And I learned a ton too, but developed some good, strengthened some good relationships that, have been so valuable to me, and friendships. So yeah, I'd say that was one of my, not surprises, but just as I've transitioned to different parts of our business, that I've kept that with me, that ask people, ask questions, ask dumb questions. They're not necessarily dumb, and people are very willing to help. So
Yeah, no doubt, especially in this area, finger waving country.
yes, we are very, very blessed. A lot of good people around here, and it's not just a small town thing, but it's easy to do business in a small town. People, a lot of us try to work our faith into our daily dealings and try to treat people well. And I'd say that's the rule much more than the exception. And high integrity, and you can trust people. And again, that's not just a small town thing, but it's a huge, huge blessing around here.
Yeah, and it's very apparent. I don't know. You can see it.
Yes.
In our local athletics and our local academics and our local arts and
Yes.
our kids are so impressive.
Yes.
It's crazy.
And
Not that we don't have a ways to go, because you're always trying to be better.
Right. Always want to improve, but people are willing to support and help and give generously. And it's, I have a daughter who's raising support to be a missionary, committing to 2 years in Indonesia, and probably longer than that. And you just realize there's a lot of very generous people out there. They're not necessarily going to be the ones to go, take that command and go, but they're very willing to help pray for her and help support her financially. And so, yeah, very cool.
Oh, that's great to hear. I know that's going on. There's so many people that they don't even want to be known, really. Maybe they're going through something like cancer, and they just want to make sure that the money that they have is doing something good before they leave.
Yes.
And they know that they're busy doing other things, obviously, when you got that going on. But yeah, I don't know. It just getting involved in the communities can really heal wounds too, I think, for people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There's a lot to be proud of in farm country, I think.
We can get in a funk of this world is, with each passing generation, this world deteriorates. Well, no, there's a lot of good stuff.
Man, they keep getting smarter quicker. I said that at school, and they looked at me, yeah, no, duh. All right. I'm like, okay, that was a dumb thing to point out.
Yeah, there's a lot of good in the world, for sure.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a break. We'll take a little 5-10 minutes.
Can
All
you hear
right.
me now?
We're back. Scott Lee has treated me to a delicious IPA.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to tell us more about this?
One of my favorites. It's all day IPA. I think it's Founders, Michigan Brewery. Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah, great place.
Yeah, it's not too strong. It's just, how can you go wrong?
You can't go wrong.
It's not Blind Butcher.
No, it's not Blind Butcher, but we
it'll
do
have to do
accept all
today.
kinds.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm more of a hazy IPA kind of
Yep,
guy.
yep.
But really, my favorite is the Schaus that Dad made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of other people's too.
Blind Ale is my favorite. It has been since day one, since the first day I got a hold of it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you got to have a flavor for everybody.
Yep.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the Blind Butcher is you can try all kinds of Iowa beers.
Right.
Or
Right.
you can just try ours.
Right.
All
Doing
sold
a nice
by the
job
ounce.
of, right.
Yeah, we've enjoyed our time with the Blind Butcher. Obviously,
Definitely.
hands have changed at this point, but they're keeping things going. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
You bet. We want to support them all we can.
Yeah, no doubt.
Keep them in the
Responsibly.
neighborhood, right? That's right.
Responsibly. All right. This is going to be the portion of the recording where we are going to talk about what for the future. Put on your thinking cap. 1 year, 5 years, 3 years, as far as you can see. I'm picturing this segment being like, all you can see is the horizon. That's all you can see. You can see some shapes over there. What's the shadow that Scott Lee sees for the future of Scott Lee and the United States and the world and agriculture and
Oh boy, here
Hot
we
Mike?
go. Yeah, good question. Well played. There's something about turning 50, and I will this year turn 54, but there's something about turning 50 and mix that up with my 2 daughters going out into the world, finishing college, and Anna's in her last semester at Iowa State. Lydia's at Cambridge, and I'm not sure where she will be after this master's, but there's just something about you do think about the future a lot, and you think about the past a lot too. And it isn't all just about business. For business, I want to continue with candles, maybe another product if something comes to mind that would appeal to our customer base. I'm a big fan of value-added ag products, just near and dear to my heart and my family's heart. With the farming operation, that is, as I said, we're at a hard size to know which technologies to adopt. The co-op has been a nice partner in that, allowing a little smaller operations like ours to try some things that they've done the research into, some implementation. And so that's been, I'm a very big fan of our local co-op, CFE.
Love that co-op too.
Yes.
I have friends that work there.
Yes,
for sure.
For sure. They've tried
You've
to
got a great test plot there north of town every year.
Absolutely. I try to support them all
You keep it clean, Scott.
Yep.
You keep it clean.
Well, they do, and it's with a...
Well, they do, technically.
I've even seen a couple of their interns out there walking the beans, which is not something I intend to do over the rest of my farm anymore. Many years of doing that back in the day, but
those days are gone for me as well. I used to.
We'll see. Never say never.
Oh yeah,
right?
never say never. Right. I hope I don't find myself at a seed corn production plant walking through corn doing pollination counts again.
Oh boy,
I've been some places.
Yes,
I've been through some.
Yes, that's
200-acre fields with
sometimes
rain gear on because it's so humid in July.
Yeah, sometimes you need experiences that shape you in a way that you don't want to be doing that on a daily basis, right?
And the thing is, it takes all those kinds of people, and if you don't do those things, you don't understand how it all works.
Right.
I had no idea how seed corn production worked, and I would bet that probably, I don't know, people in ag probably know much better, but your average person from a city has no idea
right.
what happens in that field. They just look at it and they're like, why is that corn taller than the other corn? And it alternates, and then there's a gap eventually, and
Yeah.
you just got to be in it.
Right.
Really, you got to get
Right.
your arms
It is.
into it.
It is. There is a small base of knowledge there that, it's a very specialized industry, which we all then benefit from, but
Right.
very few people have had their fingers in it, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a diverse ride for me through the years. Started off at a winery and vineyard,
Mm-hmm.
technically the vineyard side of things. And then after that, did the seed corn production down in Ogden, Iowa.
Yep.
Don't know if you remember that.
Yep, I do.
Yeah, and that was great. But I just found more of a passion in, actually, it originally came from aquaculture.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Kevin Kimley's
Yep.
son got super into aquaculture, and we were just sharing links and talking and whatnot. And now he actually has a shrimp farm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
He actually, I think, has 2.
Really?
Yeah, and he's starting to raise some really beautiful shrimp. I got to remember the name, but either way, we'll shout it out.
In central Iowa, or where did he land?
Yeah, he is in central Iowa. I think he's still living in Ames. I haven't caught up with him in a while, but oh, I don't have internet. Shoot.
Very cool.
But anyways,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
he's another person that I need to potentially get
definitely
an hour of their time or 2. As you can see, it's a little bit of setup, but
well,
whether we can convince them to come up here or me go down there, either way, it's a very interesting.
You can have a studio set up somewhere to pull people in too. It's
No, I'm working on it. Trust me. I don't want to jump the gun and jinx myself, but it seems like stars are aligning a little bit with some of that kind of stuff. But yeah, you never want to get your hopes up too much.
Yeah,
at least for me.
Stay flexible.
Yeah. Gosh. It sounds so sad, but or maybe some people interpret it as it could be sad, but I think it was Ron Dieter that said, all discontent is relative to expectations.
Interesting. Good comment, Ron.
Yeah. And it's a thinker.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a mind bender.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, so I like to keep that in mind when
Yeah.
I have all these hopes and dreams, and you have to make sure that.
Well, if you maintain flexibility too, and like you said, expectations are, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to stay open to implementation and innovation in production ag, which, changes daily, and we'll have new challenges with pests and weather and disease, and so it's and then the combination of those 3 all, so that it's a constant, again, just staying aware and asking the right questions. I started to say when you turn 50, and I don't have a son either, and that, and I don't mean to be in any way sexist in that. I have 2 daughters who are not probably coming back to Inwood, Iowa.
Nope. More than likely not, it looks like.
Yes,
Scott,
it does
being
not
your
look
neighbor
that
outside
way.
looking in.
And I do not have nieces, nephews who seem to be interested in production ag. So it's you start to think through the legacy of the land, and I'm fortunate my mom is still healthy. Both of my siblings, I have a brother in Minneapolis, a sister in Holdridge, Nebraska, very interested and active in understanding the heritage of this farm, this 150-year-old farm. And that is one thing I didn't mention, that we were the first heritage farm in Lyon County, or at least the one certified. So,
I did not know that.
Yes, one of our 80s was direct from President Grant, United States Treasury, to an old Lee relative. So there may be others, but there's many more in the eastern side of Iowa, but the state was populated going west. So.
Right.
But yeah, the legacy of that land and that farm, I would love to have my daughters still, even if they can't be in the day-to-day, fingers in the soil or hands on equipment, to still understand that we keep all or a portion of this farm, along with my siblings, and those grandchildren of Paul and Joyce have an option to continue the operation in some regard. I'd love to see that, but that will be up to them.
As it should be.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
And you totally get that.
Absolutely. I want to offer opportunities, but so that you said 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, this is probably more longer term, but yeah, bigger picture, then you think, okay, where's my family and my business located? And I'm a big supporter of our small local communities too, and Sioux Falls and the greater area too, of course. But our small communities, it's tough. It's a struggle. We've been fortunate in our school system in Westland that the taxpayers are willing to continue to invest and keep all of our facilities fresh and innovative, and we're very fortunate in that. We've got an incredible school system. Our communities it's tough. We need young people like you and your peers to be involved in all these boards, and that's tough too. I remember those days with young kids.
You know what's really tempting?
What's that?
Sports and video games.
It sure is.
It sure is, isn't it? Yeah, I know. And I'm just as guilty, but it really, change doesn't just happen. It takes people to make it happen.
It does. It does. I mean, we're fortunate for a tiny little town that we live in to have a great hospital system, Canton Inwood, that Sanford runs and manages, but our community's own, to have Fellowship Village, like I said, to have our school system, to have, we need to see what do young families want to live in these communities. It isn't just about cheap housing, it's about other opportunities.
It is about affordable housing, though. And we could definitely probably use some more in this area, being all the way to Sioux Falls.
Absolutely. But we lose a lot of members who have lived in Inwood their entire lives and who then retire to Sioux Falls. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I am saying I'd love us to have opportunities for them to stay in Inwood a little more easily.
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough with the temptation of Sioux Falls right there. And just goes back to my earlier comments of you got to make things on your way if you want to support them.
Right. It's occasional patronage, yes. But my wife grew up in a small town Iowa. We met at Iowa State. She's from a small community Marathon that there's not much left there, and they do not have they've got some regional hubs like Spencer and Storm Lake are relatively close, but Marathon there's not much there anymore, and their school system then starts to reflect that families are moving out. So it's too bad. It's tragic.
Yeah, I know.
And there's people in that community trying to make it work, and they're maybe clawing back some. But Jennifer sees what we have that's very special here in our communities, the people, the faith opportunities, the way people again try to integrate their faith into their businesses and their lives. But my wife is a very accomplished author and speaker and lives in rural Inwood, Iowa, and is able to work and exist and do her work very well, sharing her faith and her writing with literally the world. So,
and she's also a church DJ.
Yes,
on Sundays.
She is.
So
Our Savior's Lutheran Church, 2065 Birch. You're always welcome. Services at 9:30.
Yeah, nice little plug there. That's exactly what we wanted. It's not over yet, though, Scott.
Look around, though. I look at you and Kendra. I look at all the Bonson young families. Cool things going on around here. It's Paul Kipley, our family attorney and Inwood's attorney extraordinaire.
Attorney extraordinaire. Yeah.
When we moved back,
we've church and for personal.
Oh, he's awesome. He's a great person. But he gave me one of my first meetings with him when I moved back to Inwood. Was he gave me some great advice, and I won't remember it verbatim, but just, welcome back. We're glad you're back, but there's a lot to do here. And, I know he's done that with a lot of people over the years. He's recruited for boards. He does so much pro bono work. Paul is
can't
just
even
a rock
imagine.
star. Yes. But I think we all need to pass that advice on to, it's not too early to start telling Herbie and Henry, it's, if this may be your community, you may settle here, you may not, but there's a lot of benefits. It comes with some duties, some responsibilities too. So, or it won't be what we've all enjoyed growing up.
Yeah. And keeping that flame lit, essentially. Yeah. And a lot of it to me comes down to, I'm not saying that I had the best time in high school or elementary or anything. Obviously, everybody goes through various things, but our program is just second to none. Like,
Yes.
Then the teachers care, and the administration cares, and the janitors care. Everybody, everywhere. Everybody in the contractors that are working on the building right now, and they're not even really full-time employees of ours, care. We got a lot going on.
We do. A lot of good things, and it'll never be perfect, but we can find the good if we look. That's, I guess, probably one of my closing swan songs is there's a lot of good going on and a lot of good in people, but there's a lot of our neighbors struggling too. And, being a true neighbor there's times I've needed it after my dad died, it's being generous of your money is one thing, but being generous of your time and your expertise and your wisdom, that's sometimes a little harder, but oftentimes a lot more valuable too.
Yeah. And you've obviously been a mentor for me, and with mentorship comes just being caring. You're just a caring guy, and you've helped walk me through growing up and been there. So I much appreciate all of your advice, and that's why we're here today. And
thank you. I don't necessarily always consider it advice. Sometimes it's just you talk, and I think the older you get, the more you just kind of spout things that you think might plant a seed here and there, and you're probably starting to do the same more and more. So it's yeah.
Well, you never know. I mean, everybody's looking who inspires you. Well, I mean, you get inspiration everywhere you look if you really think about it.
Right.
If you're open to it.
Right.
I mean, Anna's an inspiration, and you're probably an inspiration to Anna.
Yeah. And it's like you said, if you're open to it, if you're looking for, yes. Good point.
Yeah. So that was just some closing thoughts. We've got a little bit of extra time here, obviously. So now I'd like to, now that you've experienced the experience being on the guest side of the speaker and just everything that we've talked about, what question or questions do you have for me?
You are a full generation, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, younger than I am. What do you, as you look at my, especially closing and outlook on community and future, and what ways do your experiences have a little different perspective? What do you see? What does this world look like
Where
for
do
Herbie
I
and
think it's
Henry?
going
Yes.
in 5 to 10 years?
Yes.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah, and we really don't know. That's why I tried to relate it earlier to the horizon, the physical thing you can see on the horizon, because really beyond that, it's just a thought. So what can you almost see?
Mm-hmm.
And the more people I've talked to, the more promise for the future I've heard. I think everybody needs to start playing really nice when it comes to being diversified, seeing a place in the world for gas, ethanol, electricity, everything. It's just going to take it all. And I think most people realize we can't just switch over to sustainable in one go.
Sure.
There's no, it's like a game of inchworm until you finally would get to sustainable. But as farmers, we need to be stewards of the land, and sustainability is almost the second word after stewardship. And I don't know, it's going to be a really interesting time. I think what you talked about with regulations and stuff like that, we as small business people probably would like to see less regulations that come from big corporations and then end up hurting small ones. There's just a lot of that kind of stuff that I think could be cleaned up. It's scary how much our country's spending, for sure. I'm not trying to get political, but
it is.
It's terrifying.
It is not sustainable. to pull your buzzword there, it is not sustainable.
Yeah, and I'm not super comfortable going down that path, but we're all going to have to probably lock arms to get out of it over the next 10 years, 15 years.
Be a collective
it's going to be a grind, I think.
It will.
Yeah, and I go back to West Lyon and getting this bond approval voted on and approved was huge for our community. And we wanted to circle in everybody so nobody felt left out. And I think that's what we're doing. Obviously, you can only build so fast and in certain stages and work with everybody's different schedules and things like that. But our kids are going to be in a world where public speaking and personal skills, I think, are going to be more important than being the next super athlete. Or at least there's going to be more opportunity for it, especially in our area. And I think we're going to reap a lot of benefits in 15 to 20 years from the things we're investing in over the next year and the next technically 20 years, and beyond. It's just, I hate to say it, but we still have grass when we're going through drought years at West Lyon. There's just all these crazy things you got to consider. And yeah, I don't know. Did that partially answer? Did it spark any other questions?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you're right on that. Providing our younger generations with a variety of skills and abilities that are applicable to different businesses and different industries, and helping them to realize, many of their work opportunities may be more remote and mobile, and they may be able to live in small towns. And Jennifer's on her way to Minneapolis. Most of her meetings are just right. We've got great fiber internet here. Most of her meetings are sitting right in this room back here. This was a meeting she just needed to be at, but that doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't.
Which is awesome.
Most people don't realize, but we're in the same room.
Yes.
2 people in the same room at the same time is so almost impossible these days.
It
is crazy.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and maybe you don't think you're self-important, but the bigger and the more important the person, it is harder and harder. And honestly, you're going to have to go to them.
Yeah.
They are not coming to you.
Yep.
That's my advice.
Yeah.
You want to pick somebody's brain about something, you better be able to afford that gas in your fuel tank.
Yep, absolutely. And people are more and more protective of their time, I think. I think that's maybe a generational thing. People are, I think my generation protects our family time and our downtime more than my dad's generation did, much more. And
for sure. I mean, there was probably
there has to be margin for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really tough. I don't want to get too much into it, but you can definitely, when your kids are going to bed at 8:00 and you're getting home at 6:00 or later, that's not leaving you much time.
No.
And if you want to be the next guy to send a space shuttle into orbit, you're probably not going to have time for kids. I'm sorry, but the demands of that man and that company, they're bleeding edge, right?
Yep.
And pick your adventure. right? What's important to you, family life,
Yep.
professional career.
Yep. It is. And it's about choices. And I'm not critiquing, judging, but Jennifer and I, young in our marriage, both in Omaha, I mentioned that I started with an insurance company, did some advising with them. Jennifer was at the Omaha World Herald. There were, for almost the first year of our marriage, we would meet at a little bar and grill in our neighborhood at about 9:30 at night when we were both done working. And after about a year of that, we both just kind of looked at each other and said, this isn't what life should be. And, and that was we then moved to Ames as I was doing more sales, and she had an opportunity to work with the Des Moines Register. And then when we decided to have kids, her job was not journalism, and especially in that time, the day-to-day deadline of covering politics in Iowa was what she was doing, was not conducive to having a young family. So
no, and there's plenty of jobs out there, and those people that do what you were doing generate a ton of value to the economy.
Yes.
Not to make light of people that do
No,
that. And honestly, not everybody's made to make children. And there's just all kinds, and it really does take all kinds.
And there are fewer and fewer of your generation and younger that are electing to start a family. And that is a decision.
It's very expensive to have children.
It is. Time and money.
Time and money to do it right.
So we made the decisions. I'm glad we did. I do not fault anybody who elects differently, but it is a choice.
Yeah, and it can be balanced somewhat, but it depends on how big of the project you're working on and the demands of the one who's writing the checks.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So,
and economic opportunities. I shouldn't sit here and talk about these businesses and sit down with you for an hour and a half and not say it's because of opportunities of the family I was born into. I mean, it's plain and simple. There's people who could do better jobs with these businesses than I have ever done.
Me too.
And
jump on that
if they had been born as Scott Lee. I mean, but I've tried to do all I can with what I've been given and honor that legacy and leave the world in a better place, I hope.
Yeah. And it's not easy to do.
No, it isn't.
There's a lot out there to get you and a lot of places to fall flat. And
yes.
Yeah, life is definitely a journey, but
it is.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
It's very fun. I'm having a good time.
That's good.
Yeah.
It shows.
Are you having a good time, Scott?
I am, very much. Very much.
Well, I see you haven't finished your drink, but I think we are going to wrap this up. And so I wanted to just give you one last chance to plug any family member, any brand, any board, anything that you're working on before we finally hit stop.
I think I've hit them all. I would close with money used to be very, very, very important to me. And it took me to have a realization of many, many things that it isn't. So, I've dug into my faith. I have tried to give and help, and I would not trade that for any more zeros in my bank account any day.
I'm with you. I mean, there's nothing that the world can provide you.
No.
It's all just stuff.
It's stuff.
It's all just stuff. Even the land. I know being a farmer, you're talking about multi-generational farming being important to you. And some advice that comes from our side of the family is don't fall in love with the land.
Right.
You got to be careful.
If the kids want to sell it someday, sell it.
Yep.
Amen.
As long as whoever, the best scenario is whoever takes it over sees the vision you had and
loves
has a little more energy.
Yes.
And they can just carry it that much further.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I agree. I'm not there's so much land. That's a very good point to end with. There's so much land in this state and this country, incredibly productive farmland that is going to change hands of ownership in the next 10 years and the next 25 years. Massive percentages. I should know the stats, but I don't. But yeah, it's how much more positive for that to go in the hand of a producer with his boots on the ground, his or her boots on the ground, and then absentee owners just not even really knowing where to find Inwood, Iowa on a map.
That makes you sad.
It does.
Or it would make me sad.
It does. Farming is not a production. Crop production is not a business opportunity that many can just walk right into with these capital requirements. But maybe we need to, as landowners and families who have inherited land, look at how we can bring young, interested producers in. I know there's a lot of that going on in the Beginning Farmer Center at Iowa State.
Yep. There's great resources there. We've been to the Small Farm Conference. They have it, I think, once a year.
Yep.
So, if you get interested,
I always intentional about that. It's a choice.
Yeah.
We need to be intentional about that.
Yep. And that's a great source of people who are interested in starting their own farms.
Yes.
Gosh, if you wanted to sell to a passionate person, go find someone at that place and just talk to a couple of people.
Be their financing, be there, give them a deal.
Yeah.
Let's help them, give some advice, share some equipment.
Learn something.
Yes.
Maybe they can exponentially grow you and you all of a sudden have an interest in ag. You never know.
Yes.
And you just got to go where the energy is.
Right.
I think. Anyways.
Good call.
Yeah. We'll wrap it up there. This has been the Farm Country Trader Patreon audio clip. You can also check us out on farmcountrytrader.com. Thanks for listening.